One of the strongest ways to break a human is simple: overload them. Mental energy is everything. Your health, your focus, your productivity all depends on where you put it. Chances are you're not using it well. Because of that, most people operate at just 5% of their real capacity. Let me help you claim the rest. But first, what is mental energy anyway? What is mental energy? Mental energy is not some magical concept. Basically, it is the thing that is required for your brain to do work and make decisions. When you're doing some meticulous work or making decisions, you are using your mental energy. Of course, there are different names for the mental energy. Some people call it discipline power, others call it mental capacity, other people call the lack of it stress or burnout. By the way, have you heard of burnout? Burnout happens when you are regularly using too much of your mental energy. So technically you can say that burnout is lack of mental energy. The interesting part is that an average person usually has only 5% of their mental energy available. Where's the rest, you may ask? And the rest is occupied with completely useless shit. I'll tell you why a bit later, but that's the exact reason why most people are so boring, uninteresting, and unchanging. They already used all their mental energy on bullshit, so they just cannot load any more stuff into that 5% of free space they have, because that's just what they need to leave. They can't just use all their mental energy. And that's why they don't try anything new, they don't get new hobbies, they stay boring, and they continue living the same life they always lived. Even if they don't like that, they just cannot change it because they don't have enough mental energy for it. I hope now you understand the importance of it. So what is draining it? Where does the mental energy go? Where do these people waste it all? As I said before, the mental energy is used for making decisions. But the thing is, the objective importance of a decision does not matter for our brain. It uses the exact same amount of energy when you're choosing between a gum, for instance between a spearmint and a peppermint, and when you're choosing a wife or something. The only thing that matters, the only thing that affects how much mental energy is used, is the subjective difficulty of the decision. So if choosing which gum to buy is difficult for you, then your brain will use a lot of mental energy to choose. Because think about it, our brains did not change since the time we were cavemen. And when you are a caveman, you either don't have a choice or your choice is very important. So your brain always thinks all your choices are very important. Another thing mental energy is being used for is work and activities. Any activities that you engage in and where you have to make decisions or participate yourself are using mental energy. So for instance, video games use a lot of it because you need to make decisions. Sometimes it's a very meticulous thing, it requires a lot of attention. But TV shows are not so much, because you're just watching them, you're not actively participating. Of course, besides choosing what to watch, that also requires mental energy if it's a difficult task for you. And most importantly, that's what takes most of the mental energy for a lot of people. It is wasted on incomplete tasks. Again, I'll repeat this because this is very important. Mental energy is wasted on incomplete tasks. Any task that you started and it is hanging in your head. For instance, that TV show you'll maybe finish someday. 5,000 videos in your watch later playlist on YouTube. That bill you keep delaying. That project you started, never finished, but keep it on your shelf. That promise to your friend you made 2 months ago. All of these tasks occupy some mental energy of your brain. Even though you don't think about them, it is still occupying some mental energy and prevent you from going forward or doing new things. This is kinda like RAM in your computer. If you don't close a program, it will continue using RAM. Now imagine how fucked up it is. You're trying to work on some project and make your life better, but 95% of your brain is filled with garbage. No wonder why it's so hard, right? And then imagine the situation. You woke up, thought for an hour about what to eat for breakfast, then thought about what to watch while you eat, went to the store and made tons of micro decisions about what to buy, listened to music on the way there, choosing what to listen to. Oh, and the driving, yeah. It also requires mental energy. Then maybe played some video games. Again, a lot of micro decisions, a lot of focus required for it. And after all that, when you already used up most of your mental energy, you sit down and try to work. Answer this question yourself. Are you gonna be working effectively after all this? After using up all your mental energy for the day? Probably not, right? Most people live like that, so let me tell you how to avoid making these mistakes. How to manage your mental energy correctly. First of all, you need to deal with incomplete tasks. I call this strategy the do or forget list. So what this is that you need to create a list of incomplete tasks in your life. Just sit there for some time and think, what tasks do I have in my life that maybe sometimes pop up in my brain and I think, well, maybe I need to do this, but then I keep delaying them. For instance, pay that bill, finish that TV show, finish that video game I started, call my grandpa, whatever. Write all of these tasks down. Then look at each one and decide whether you will do this or not. For instance, that video game. You can think, well, that video game is kinda boring, I actually don't want to finish it. So cross that task and forget about it. The symbolic ritual of crossing the task will help you to forget it easier. If you decide to actually finish the task, then schedule some time to complete it soon, preferably this same day. If you only do this one step, this one technique, it will already free up half of your mental energy. Second, you need to optimize all the unimportant decisions. It doesn't matter which restaurant you go to tonight, or which gum you buy, or which toilet paper is 4 cents cheaper. There is a rule that I use always. Don't spend more than a minute on unimportant decisions. Learn to make them almost instantly. What is an unimportant decision? Unimportant decision is any decision that is not life-altering. So if the direction of your life does not depend on this decision, make it under 1 minute. You need to pre-plan everything that is possible to pre-plan. Schedule is a very good thing for optimizing your mental energy use, because when you make a schedule, you automatically remove a lot of decisions that you would need to make otherwise. For instance, what time do I eat? What time do I exercise? What time do I sleep? All of these decisions are eliminated by pre-planning. All the waste of neural resource, mental energy, can be optimized either by outsourcing it or abandoning it. Outsourcing works for business or when you have a lot of money, because the scale of your personality depends on the scale of problems you solve. The CEO of Apple does not bother himself with poor sales in your local Apple store. Other people do it for him. So you see what I'm saying? The CEO of Apple outsourcing the less important things to focus on the things that actually matter. If you have a lot of money, then you can do this too. For instance, you can hire a cook and your cook will cook food for you, so that you don't have to worry about what do I eat for breakfast, and you can focus on more important work instead. And abandoning works best when you need to make some initial push. For instance, you just started a business and you need to focus all your attention to it. You will have to sacrifice a lot of things for that, because you will need all your mental energy to actually achieve something. So when you're making that initial push, you need to remove hard, unnecessary decisions and other things that require a lot of mental energy, such as video games. And of course, remove the clutter of incomplete tasks. That also helped me too, by the way. I was wasting a lot of my mental resources on video editing, which is a very meticulous task. It actually does not take a lot of time, maybe 1-2 hours, but it requires a lot of mental energy because you need to make a lot of micro decisions, you need to pay a lot of attention to it, so I just abandoned a lot of it. I simplified my editing. Of course, if I had money, I could have hired an editor, which would be an outsourcing, the previous thing we talked about. And that would solve this problem too. So again, you can do 2 things to preserve your mental energy: abandon and outsource. You don't have to always optimize it so much though. You can reserve it just for times when you want to make the initial push to something, achieve some great goal. But remember, it's best to never clutter your life in the first place and keep your mental energy free, because that's what makes you try new things. That's what makes you become better and change. So even though it is not necessary to do this constantly, it is still best to do so. When all your mental energy is occupied with unfinished tasks, it becomes very hard to try new things in life. Now 2 very important tips I want to give you. The first one is what I call environmental minimalism. It is basically another cheat code for productivity. It works so well. Basically, it's a rule that says the place where you do work must be as minimalistic as possible. For instance, I have minimal amount of things on my table, and all the things that I actually need and cannot remove from my table, I move to the side, so it's not directly on my line of sight. So when I sit down to work, I only see the necessary things like my mouse, keyboard, and my monitors. I even peeled off the label from my lipstick because I don't want it to clutter my visual space. When your visual space is cluttered, it's harder for you to focus on what really matters. So remember, environmental minimalism. It is very important. The second tip is called eating the frog. Imagine you're at a restaurant and you get a free dinner. However, you must eat a frog either after the dinner or before the dinner. What would you choose? Eat it afterwards or before? It is very likely that at first thought you would think that eating the frog afterwards is better. However, if you think about it a little bit more, you will understand that it's better to get it over with immediately and then eat the dinner. So just like it is better to eat the frog first, it is also better to do the most difficult and important task first thing in the morning, while you still have the mental energy for it. Which is why it's called the frog task. And again, the frog task is not just some random task, it's the most important task that you can have. For instance, for me as a YouTuber, it's recording videos. For you, it may be something else. It depends on what you work on. Usually the frog task follows the 20-80 rule. which says that 20% of the action gives 80% of result. So let's say I stop doing anything besides recording videos. My channel will probably still grow. But if I stop recording videos and just focus on doing everything else, my channel will not grow. So 20% of effort gives 80% of result. That's why my frog task is recording videos. Just adapt that same logic to anything you are doing. So let's recap. Make a do or forget list. Optimize your life and decisions as much as possible. Create a schedule, a meal plan, etc. Make it a rule for yourself to not spend more than a minute on inconsequential decisions. Either outsource the tasks that are draining your mental resource or abandon them. Make it a rule to not create unfinished tasks for yourself. Either don't start them, finish them, or abandon them for good. Do the most important work in the morning. That's it for this video. Like, sub, notifications. Remember, discipline is freedom, and I see you in the next one.